With all the pre-release controversies, I was on the fence about picking this game up. But another priest recently shared with me that he considers the original to be the greatest game of all time. Then, right after that, somebody sent me a link to pick up Part 2 at 40% off. So I figured, the Lord must want me to talk more about Kingdom Come Deliverance too. This will not be a full review. I've put in a good number of hours, but this is a pretty massive game, so I'm purposefully using the term reflection rather than review here. I'll be giving my impressions and then delving into an aspect of the storytelling that I feel is worth analyzing a bit more deeply. Also note that I've only dabbled in the first game. I have not completed Henry's original story. I know that makes me a Kingdom Come Deliverance heretic. But well, I also know that I'm hardly alone. Perhaps my take will resonate more with you fellow heretics out there. Despite some big flops over the past year, it's not like gamers are starved for high-quality releases. We've had several really great games in recent memory. Yet, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is rather unique. Most of the time in the gaming space, medieval settings are synonymous with high fantasy, with dragons and wizards and the like. KCD represents a more low fantasy, semi-historical take on things, which is frankly refreshing to see. There are a ton of loving details packed into these environments, giving little glimpses into medieval life. And even the artistry that's gone into the rich variety of regional appropriate plants and trees, it all comes together to create a game world that feels well realized. Now, I don't mean to imply that everything is strictly realistic. There are plenty of elements like wound healing and, well, the whole alchemy system, where keeping things player-friendly takes precedence over simulated realism. And that's totally fine with me. One of the marks of a good open world is when that world feels like it does not revolve around you. And thankfully, that sensation is very much present here. Bohemia and its residents feel like they exist independently of the player. They're not waiting for some hero to kill the rats in the basement, though that isn't to say that this world is not reactive. On the contrary, it is very reactive. People will respond to you differently depending on your clothing and cleanliness. Your local reputation really matters, and NPCs will remember both favors and slights. Those choices you make in your side quests, they will often follow you. Yet, in spite of that reactivity, you still feel like a small cog in a big machine. Your actions make a difference, but it's not because you're the chosen one or the destined hero of prophecy. Henry is a fairly ordinary fellow, and to become a powerful force in this world, that's going to take a lot of work. While playing this, I was reminded of titles like Gothic, where you likewise start out at the bottom of the food chain in a harsh environment, and have to put some serious effort into clawing your way up, especially during those opening hours. Once you unlock some of the better perks, things do get significantly easier, and the perk system here is very good. Your choices in how you spec out your character allow for a meaningful degree of variety and specialization, which I imagine would make for rewarding replays. With good speech skills, for instance, you can talk your way out of a whole lot of fights. Though, when it comes to combat, it was quite the shift diving into this right after playing Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. In that title, once you sharpen your skills, you'll be pulling off these frenetic 100-hit combos. Here, too, there's a concrete sense of getting better at wielding your weapons, but I would never describe it as fast and fluid. The pace of combat here is much more deliberate. Like several other aspects of this game, it feels very grounded. Getting good at most anything will involve a lot of practice. Henry's quest is definitely grindy, not in the JRPG, slay a bazillion mobs to gain levels type of grind. What you're in for is rather a repeat the basic task over and over style of skill progression. Back in the early days of Skyrim, before all the patches, if you wanted to craft the best weapons and armor, the fast way to get good at that was by smithing or enchanting like 500 iron daggers. And if that's your thing, if you start up a new Skyrim character and you're like, I can't wait to forge hundreds of iron daggers, well, then you're going to love Kingdom Come Deliverance too. Whether it's smithing or alchemy or archery, that repeat the same task type of grinding is present here to a degree beyond most RPGs. And for some, it will feel rewarding. There's a realistic dimension to all that. But if you know you're not that type of gamer, well, consider yourself warned. As in the previous game, even saving can require grinding out some schnapps, though it took less than a day before a quick save mod dropped. What may push you to power through despite the grind is the sheer quality of both the open world and the cinematic storytelling. Bohemia begs to be explored. It's fittingly dangerous and full of side stories to uncover that by and large are well integrated into the world. Your map seldom feels like a checklist of icons to cross off. The main reward for exploration may sometimes be more unraveling a story than uncovering a treasure or meaningful upgrade. But as long as those stories are engaging, I'm on board for that. As far as in-game cutscenes go, what you get here is top of the line. Bolstered by an excellent atmospheric soundtrack, KCD2 knows how to deliver compelling story beats. But what about those controversies? Were those critical voices making much ado about nothing? St. Augustine famously reasoned that everybody ends up worshipping something. If it's not God, not the highest thing, rest assured you will find something else. You might end up worshipping a noble ideal, or it might be a person you love, or it might be the Kingdom Come Deliverance games, and woe to those who dare to blaspheme. So some will not like to hear this, but as for those, such as myself, who voiced concerns about Henry and another major character suddenly embracing sexual fluidity, well, let's just say that it was not an accident that the game got banned in Saudi Arabia. Now, I am against censorship, but I am in favor of transparency, along with those other factors which I already talked about in my previous video on this game. My purpose right now is not to rehash those points. Plenty of people are talking about that. Instead, I want to touch on a different aspect, which it seems that nobody is talking about. Some other reviewers whose videos I enjoy, they've taken the "don't worry, this game is not woke" position. Yes, it has some of that aforementioned content, but it's optional and it's a tiny part of an enormous game. Okay, but there is another aspect that is being ignored. Take, for instance, Mack's review over at Worth a Buy.
He says, "Do you fancy going for a drink?" And I says, "No, I prefer drinking with ladies." And he says, "Okay, that's right." Now, there's a meltdown over stuff like that. It happened once, and I know from the devs it happens one more time much later on in the game, where you can say nice things to a certain person in the game or choose not to say nice things to that certain person in the game. If you say all the right nice things, you'll get to see a kiss. That's it. And people are crying. I've had my channel attacked because I said it's a nothing burger. Oh, look at it's not diverse at all. And everybody's saying Jesus Christ be praised. Everywhere I go, Jesus Christ be praised. So that's it.
But notice now, this is a setting where everybody tells each other, Jesus Christ be praised. But how do they treat one another in this world?
It goes against the mainstream. I get that. They'll not want this game of the year because there's so much whoring. Women get treated like f***. There's loads of sexism in this game. I mean, some of the stuff that you do, I'm like, f*** me, that was a bit. It's just brutal, this game. Nobody has any respect for anybody in this game. It's just absolutely brutal.
So this is a very Christian setting, but everybody treats everybody like dirt. Now, Mack's words may be a slight exaggeration, and please understand that my intention is not to bash him or anyone else. A whole lot of good people fail to pick up on this. In the arena of ideological messaging, there are times when advancing your cause is achieved without representing your cause at all. I think at this point, gamers are used to having a lot of representation shoved in their faces. That's the most direct way of advancing the message. You insert a character who embodies your cause, or a world where that cause is victorious, and you idealize. Your character is flawlessly heroic. Your world is a utopia. Again, that's the direct approach. We see it quite often, but it's not the only approach. If you're a radical feminist, You might push for a story depicting an idealized matriarchal society, like Wonder Woman's Themyscira. But alternatively, you could also depict a society which is strongly patriarchal, where men have all the power, and then show that society to be hell on earth. This is the approach of stories like the TV series Mad Men, which was popular a while back. Where it's a man's world, it's a toxic world, because those men, whether it's with women or with each other, they only know how to use and abuse. No man was an honorable husband or a loving father, not until women thankfully gained enough power to force them to be. But that's exactly how it was, someone is bound to say. Only, that's not really true. Now, the answer is not to put forth a world that idealizes things in the opposite direction, as if KCD2 should depict a perfect Christian society in which everyone practices selfless, Christ-like charity. That's not what I'm arguing for. In fact, a brutal society can make for an exciting setting. It's just that the reality lies somewhere in between. And when you're presented with a slanted view, it's worth asking why. Ideological warfare is everywhere, and it's constantly getting more sophisticated. We ought to be aware that woke messaging is not limited to the inclusion of inspiring figures who identify with the victim class of the month. Instead of an idealized representation of side A, the message is sometimes furthered by a demonized representation of side B. The father of lies is good at what he does. As consumers, as gamers, for us to be on the lookout for these sort of things, it certainly doesn't hurt. And that's all I've got for today. May you go with God, may you like and subscribe, and may we pray for one another. Until we meet again.